PM 2.5, PM 10, likewise. And all these things have made me to think that why can't I make a presentation on the atmospheric pollution and its effect on the climate. Because I have, among the audience, I have academicians across the spectrum of science and also from humanities. I thought, let me start with the solar radiation energy and how the activities of humankind perturb this radiation, and finally how does it affect the weather and then climate. So this is the way the presentation goes. And another reason for coming out with this the topic is that there was a combined study by ISRO and NASA, that was a joint team, wherein they have come out with the fact that there is a layer of aerosol. Aerosols are the particles in the atmosphere, and there is a layer of aerosol which are actually at a height of between 16.5 to 18.5 kilometers. This means that this is above troposphere, and that is extending from Indian subcontinent towards the African continent. So this is really detrimental for the weather pattern, the climate pattern, the water cycle. So these are some of the three reasons behind choosing today's topic for discussion. So as I said earlier, let me begin with solar radiation. In fact, if you look at solar radiation, it's a spectrum of, it has different rays starting from cosmic ray, gamma rays, X-rays, UV, visible, IR, microwave, and radio waves. But then, the radiation transfer thermal energy, and when this thermal energy is absorbed by land, ocean, and let's say atmosphere, and of course the cryosphere all together, then heats the atmosphere, and then the weather and the climate. Now, among these radiations, about 43% of the energy is associated with the visible light, and 49% near infrared and infrared. So for today's discussion, I would mainly concentrate on the visible light and of course the near infrared part. So therefore the sun does not heat rays in the space, rather it sends the light, and then that is being absorbed by different components of the earth as well as ocean. And again, if you have the pollutants in the coastal waters, that again absorbs the light, and then that becomes a hotspot. So all those things we see on a daily basis. So when the light from the sun is absorbed by earth, it is unevenly, as I said earlier. It drives wind bands, which drive surface currents. In fact, something like a wind driven circulation. And then it also drives deep ocean currents. And then it also drives water cycle, like monsoon itself is a simple example for that, then drive weather. Now, if I look at the primitive atmosphere, it was just right in the sense that the greenhouse gas, that was a naturally produced greenhouse gas, around 65% was water vapor. So that was sufficient enough. And also the study shows that had this water vapor not been there, the Earth's average temperature would have been minus 18 degrees centigrade. But then what happened subsequently? Subsequently, as a result of our industrial revolution, more and more carbon dioxide, emitted to the atmosphere. Concentration of the carbon dioxide has been increased. And then most of us know the scaling curve, which clearly says that from 1960 onwards, how the emission of carbon dioxide to atmosphere, how that has increased the atmospheric temperature. Now, if I take different gases as a result of the industrial revolution, and also due to other man-made activities, you can see that water vapor I have not added because that's naturally produced greenhouse gas. So if you look at GWP, that is the global warming potential, you can see how is CFC, how is nitrous oxide, how is methane. This is from this has been taken from IPCC Fourth Assessment Report 2007. So therefore, after having discussed that, let me now take you to somewhere else. Let us try to understand what are the drivers of air pollution closing climate change. In fact, basically, there are two different components. These are greenhouse gas and aerosol. I'm sure that most of you might have heard a lot or might have listened to many lectures on the greenhouse gases and then, the atmospheric warming. Therefore, today's lecture, I would concentrate more on aerosol and then how that affects the climate and then the water cycle. In fact, monsoon is the soul as far as our agriculture is concerned, because we know that such a huge country, somewhere we have drought, somewhere you have flood, somewhere you have rain. So that is the kind of heterogeneity we experience over this land. So I'm trying to explain that how this aerosol is hindering the solar radiation and how it affects the water cycle. And these aerosols are dust particles, sea salt, sulfate, black carbon, and then organic matter. Now, at this juncture, I should introduce a terminology which is very, very important, which is very significant as far as a climate scientist is concerned. That's albedo. It says albedo. Albedo means reflectiveness of a surface. Means surface with a high albedo reflect more incoming solar radiation. For example, snow, glaciers, and ice have high albedos. But surfaces with the high albedo absorbs less thermal energy. Right? So, let me also explain that. Let us assume that 100% of solar radiation is, passing through the space and then entering into the, Earth's domain. And then out of this 100%, 30% has to go back, in the sense that when this radiation interacts with our lithosphere, our hydrosphere, our atmosphere, and then our cryosphere. Cryosphere is the ice sphere. So integral effect of all this should send back 30% of the radiation so that we will have a comfortable life on the Earth's surface. Let me also tell you this cryosphere, the importance of the cryosphere made National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research in Vasco to change its name to NCPOR. That means National Center for Polar and Ocean Research. So that is the significance of cryosphere. Now, let me take you to this interactive video wherein I would, let's say that as a result of global warming, the icebergs and ice in the polar region get melted. Then what would be the, the result? In fact, the albedo of water is around 4%. That means 96% of the light coming down would be absorbed by water, while in the case of ice, it's around 85 to 90%. That means 90% of the light will go back if it is, I would show one more. So 90% of the light goes, yes. All right. So this is what happened. So if you have now, how does it happen? What is the reason for the iceberg or ice in the polar region, get melted? In fact, that is due to the black soot or the black carbon, we say. Black carbon is basically emitted to the atmosphere as a result of biomass burning, fossil fuel burning, especially incomplete combustion adds a lot to atmosphere. And this BC, let me tell you, atmosphere doesn't have any political boundary. So even if that is happening over the land, it can be, transported thousands of kilometers, and that can be finally settled on ice, like for example in the polar region as well as in the Himalayan ice and also in the Arctic region. Okay, so once that comes, greater heat absorption. So the specific characteristics of the BC is that it absorbs solar radiation, visible light, and then snow and ice melt, darker groundwater exposed, great soot concentration, greater. So once that happens, you can even see that the polar region would be devoid of ice. Just imagine a condition where the polar region would be devoid of ice. That means the climate prevailing in the polar region would be that of tropical region. So if that is the case, you can also expect the COVID and all the other virus, spreading over there because temperature is same. And then once the albedo goes to 4%, means 96% of the thermal energy would be completely absorbed, and you cannot expect any formation of the ice in those regions. That means we need to have those ice. We need to preserve those ice in those regions so that 90%, the albedo has to be kept at 90%. That means only 4% would be, they absorbed by that. Let me go back. Yes. Yes. Now the same thing has been shown as as a schematic diagram, wherein you can see 100% of the light is 100% of radiations are coming inside, and that is absorbed by land, ocean, atmosphere, etc. And Earth is emitting energy in the IR part of electromagnetic spectrum. So 7% is going out, and then from this latent heat means hidden heat. So latent heat and then your sensible heat, all those together 63%. So all together 100 plus 100 has to be balanced by minus 100. Within that, you have to have this 30%. So 30% is actually the albedo. Now, when I say about the albedo, I must explain, another important, the divisions of atmosphere on the basis of temperature. Now, here, if you see, this is called a troposphere. That means from the surface to around 10 kilometers, especially in the tropical region, if you see, up to 10 or 11 kilometers, you can see. So up to surface to 11 kilometers, you have the troposphere, and above that, you have a layer of constant temperature. That's isothermal layer. That is termed as tropopause, and then you have the stratosphere. Now, let me tell you this troposphere. Here, the temperature is around 17 degrees centigrade. That means at the near the surface. That means 290 Kelvin. And then when you go to 11 kilometers, the temperature has been reduced to minus 50. So that means you have the air mass here, which is denser than the surface. That means there is a convective surface. That means the air mass prevailing there is highly unstable. And this is the region where you have the thunder, you have lightning, you have the rain, and this is the place where we are living. But again, when you see this tropopause, as I said earlier, this is an isothermal layer, and this is the lid here. So it's actually acting like a lid. And above that, above the tropopause, you have the stratosphere. So as I said here, troposphere is the highly unstable layer, but stratosphere, you see, here you have less temperature, here you have high temperature. That means here, when you go up, the density of the air decreases. That means the highly stable layer. Stratosphere is a highly stable layer. Therefore, I want to make a statement that here, whatever activity going on due to human, interaction at the Earth's surface, if there are lots of aerosol emitted to the atmosphere, especially in the troposphere, and by chance, let us say that if it escapes troposphere and goes to stratosphere, in the stratosphere, it can be there for years together, but in the troposphere, it can be days and then, of course, weeks. Now, at the same time, let me also introduce another, concept like from surface to around 1 to 1.5 kilometer, you have something called a planetary boundary layer. And to make you understand, I have, shown one figure here. Here you can see that this planetary boundary layer is like a lid kept on a vessel. When the vessel is boiled, what happens is that the lid goes up and down. So same thing happened here in the planetary boundary layer. That planetary boundary layer that goes up and down, during daytime it goes up, and nighttime it comes down. Similarly, during winter it comes down, and summer it goes up. That means it's actually acting like a protective shield for all those aerosol particles coming from the land. But then there are cases where if it breaks, and then if it escapes that planetary boundary layer, and if it goes to free troposphere, then you can always expect large variability in the climate prevailing in a particular region. Now, whatever I have said, that as a result of aerosol, when you have thick layer of aerosol, how really that matters, and how finally it mold the weather and finally the climate. So for this, I have come out with some, hypothesis, wherein assume that, assume that you have, yes, 1.5 kilometers is your PBL, planetary boundary layer, let's say it's around 3 kilometers. So from the Earth's surface, assume that you have a thick layer of aerosol. Okay, and this is the TOA. TOA stands for top of the atmosphere. Let's say it's 520 kilometers, so it's a TOA, top of the atmosphere. So what I'm going to do is that I have a cloud-free day, because whenever we do some measurement or study on aerosol, what we do is that we do it on a cloud-free day, because otherwise we'll also get the effect of cloud. We don't want to have any diffuse light. Rather, what we want is the direct light. So if I send the radiation like this, these are visible part of electromagnetic spectrum. If I send like this, I will have the albedo from the surface and assume that these particles are scattering in nature. So at this juncture, I should explain that there are two different types of the aerosol. One is scattering in nature, another is absorbing in nature. So whenever you have particles which are dominant, let's say dominance of the particles are scattering in nature, then you will have more albedo. When you have more albedo, you will have a cooling effect. Okay. In fact, this was for the first time. This was this idea or the hypothesis was coined by a professor in UK, wherein he had done some iron fertilization experiment in ocean, and then by way of that, phytoplankton growth has been increased, and then from the phytoplankton you have sulfate aerosol, and those sulfate aerosol act like cloud condensation nuclei, etc. So this is, the idea has been put forward by him. So here, if you have this, what I'm showing by the cursor, if the particles are scattering in nature, then you find that you have more albedo. That means you have more reflectance, and as a result, you have cooling effect here. On the other way around, let us say that you have let's say that you have a mixture of aerosol. That means scattering as well as absorbing type of aerosol. So what will happen is that when you have, that means BC along with the, let's say, sulfate aerosol, which is generated from plants and of course from the phytoplankton, let's say that. Okay, let us assume that. So if you have a mixture of such aerosol, what will happen is that the BC particle absorbs solar radiation and thus reduce the planetary albedo. What does it mean? Ultimately what happens is that it absorbs the radiation and then we will have a warming. So we are living in this region, okay? So you have the warming. And then also remember that these are the shortwave radiation, means radiation coming from the sun. At the same time, Earth is also emitting radiation, that is, the IR radiation. And when this radiation goes out, what will happen is that also absorbs, so re-emitted terrestrial radiation, and that also warms. So if you have a mixture of aerosol, wherein you have both scattering and black carbon, then you will have warming from both the direction. One from the radiation, solar radiation, another what is going from the land. And in the event of, let's say that you have large BC particle, for example, you have forest fire. America is famous for that. And recently you have Australian forest fire, wherein, there were a lot of report and a lot of studies also show that how that affects the water cycle over there. So if you have, in the event of you have more BC particles in the atmosphere, that definitely affects the water cycle. I would explain that in the subsequent slides. All right. Now let's say that what are these aerosol? These are minute particles suspended in the atmosphere. As I said earlier, they scatter and absorb light. Of course, it can be emitted directly and directly like dust particles, then sea spray, then there is a forest fire. As a result, you have BC. But then, as I said earlier, sulfate aerosol from phytoplankton, this is basically as a result of gas to particle conversion, because it is sulfate gas, and then due to chemical reaction in the atmosphere, it becomes a sulfate aerosol. So that's what secondary. And then act as a site for a chemical reaction to take place. That's in the atmosphere, it happens. And of course, if, as I said earlier, if it is not trapped by the planetary boundary layer, that means if it leaves the planetary boundary layer and if it goes to free troposphere and further goes to, let's say, further goes to stratosphere, then the residence time of such aerosol, that means the duration which it can be there in the stratosphere can be years together, because stratosphere is a highly stable layer. Then this already I said. So small particles or droplets suspended in the atmosphere, important for both day climate as well as this. And these are the sea salt, dust, and then volcanic ash. And these are the photographs of the same thing, sea salt. These are the shape. You can see that. And yeah, this is very, very important. This is something I must explain in a very detailed way. These aerosols act like a cloud condensation nuclei, as I said earlier. Let's say that these aerosols are two different types. One is water attracting, they are called as hygroscopic aerosol. Another is water repelling, that means hydrophobic aerosol. That means even if you have, let's say, 100% of humidity in the atmosphere, if these particles there, because they are acting like a cloud condensation nuclei. So if they are not attracting the water vapor, then what will happen that clouds won't form. But what really happens is that BC particle, by virtue of the fact that it is there in the atmosphere for a long time. Let me also tell you another important thing. BC, in spite of rain, in fact, I have done some measurement here in Goa. Like we find that in spite of the rain, some of the BC are still left out in the atmosphere. So if that happens, then when the humidity increases, the characteristics of the BC itself will be changed. In fact, it will have an outer coat of water attracting type of structure, wherein it starts attracting the water vapor, and thus it embeds into the cloud. That means it camouflage, and then it acts like a cloud condensation nuclei. And then what happens? The cloud is formed. But then when the solar radiation comes down, and slowly what happens that it really shows its color, in the sense that it shed out its outer layer, and then it starts absorbing the solar radiation and thus diffuses the cloud. So that means first is that direct effect, that is directly scattering, and in the case of BC it absorbs, but the other particles it scatters. And if the BC, after camouflaging, if it enters as a cloud condensation nuclei, and then again it absorbs the solar radiation and diffuses the cloud. So thus these aerosols, especially the BC, I would say that is very much detrimental as far as the cloud, and then subsequently as far as the water cycle is concerned. Can inhibit or enhance cloud formation. Yeah. And yes, so these are some of the photographs I have. Yes, sorry. Yeah, deserts, agriculture, I mean, as a result of the activity over there, sea salt from oceans, sulfate, marine phytoplankton, and fossil fuel burning, volcanoes, desert dust, and then the Saharan dust storm from West African coast. Yeah, these are where does it come from? Black carbon is basically transportation, then fossil fuel burning, cooking stoves, biomass burning. Let me, at this juncture, I should tell you something very important. In the year 2014, when the present government has taken over at the center, if you all remember that he had requested, the government had requested all of us, like those who are having two connections, the gas connection, please surrender one, basically to help them. By virtue of that, the emission to the atmosphere, especially black carbon emission to the atmosphere, has been considerably reduced. In fact, there are a number of satellite pictures which clearly shows that Indo-Gangetic Plain during the month of
Hari, your presentation needs to be shown in a larger format. It is not shown.
It is to me it is larger format.
I don't know why it has happened.
No,
I don't know about
the presentation.
Pin
the presentation.
Sorry?
Not your video. Pin the presentation.
I didn't get you.
When you
see, there will be.
When you put
there will be.
Sorry.
Yeah, tell me.
Go to when you go to press on people, on right hand side, click there. Adjacent to that, you will see your two names. One is presentation, one is yourself.
Yeah.
There, if you see pin, Pin the presentation.
Okay.
Pin the presentation.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
No, I think you have done something else.
I have pinned
that. It is still not come.
No. Wherever you're seeing a small presentation, you put your cursor over there. A pin shape will come. You pin that on the presentation. You do it. Don't do it on the side. You'll get it.
Okay.
Yeah, just when there's a gray little thing with a pin, just pin it. Your presentation becomes pin. I've done the same because it became small because somebody tried to put in a presentation. Somebody tried to put it. That's why that became small. So you pin it.
No, there is nothing to pin here on this. It's only on the side it's there.
No, on wherever the presentation is, take your cursor over there. In the center, a little oval shaped gray thing will come out with voice, and one is with like a pin, with a pin head. Just click on that.
Oh.
It will automatically become, that will
So I think Dr. Ramesh Kumar has to do that, not Dr. Menon.
This is done?
myself.
No, it's fine?
Yeah, done.
Yeah?
It's nice. Please go ahead.
Okay.
It is nice. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I hope I am audible.
Yeah, you may hear, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah. So here the black carbon, that is the most important component or important species as far as the aerosol is concerned. That is from transportation, fossil fuel burning, cooking stove, cooking the stove from as a result of cooking, then biomass burning. In fact, as I said earlier, the central government has taken an initiative to help them so that, to reduce the BC emission to the atmosphere. There are, as I said earlier, there are number of satellite images or the satellite retrieved data, which clearly shows that there is a large plume of BC particles in the Indo-Gangetic plain, and that transport towards the Bay of Bengal. So that, the effect of that in the ecosystem has also been studied. There were a number of studies on that. And organic matter, biomass burning, fossil fuel burning, and nitrates, chemical reaction of ammonia and sulfate like agriculture emission, biomass burning, and fossil fuel burning. And of course, then VOC from vegetation, that also adds to this aerosol. Now let me explain. Suppose this dust particle. Let's say that this dust particle, this is coming from a number of deserts. One of the important study carried out by American scientists is that the transportation of, I'm getting echo from there. I don't know what is that. Should I mute my video or not?
You please, Menon sir, you please continue.
Continue, please.
I am getting echo.
No, I will see someone might have put on the mic. I will just see it.
Okay. Thank you.
Clear.
So here, yeah. So here you can, there are a number of studies by American scientists explaining the effect of, dust from the Saharan desert and the ecosystem, how that has been affected to the ecosystem, especially in the Florida coast. And they are solid particle, mostly natural. Then humans contribute from land conversion. See this, albedo is approximately 0.5. That means if these dust particles are, let's say, deposited in any of those regions, either on the land or in the coastal waters, then the albedo, that means 50% of the radiation will go back. Only 50% would be retained there. That means 50% would be absorbed and 50 would go back. Now, the question is that does dust cause cooling or warming? Because when the albedo is 0.5, we have to ask this question. So the answer is that both. For example, cooling or warming, over forest or water, it's cooling. That means if the dust particle settles over the forest or water, sand is lighter, higher albedo than forest or water. Therefore, it's cooling. But if it settles over ice or snow, it's warming. So sand is darker, therefore lower albedo than snow or ice. So that means if it, that settles over ice, it's warming. And if it settles over forest, it's cooling. Then the sea salt. Sea salt, as you know, that's basically from ocean. And solid particles, unless hydrated with water, then mostly natural. Sea salt are, of course, there is a natural, and it causes cooling. Sea salt is always causes cooling. And then sulfate, similar is nitrate. In fact, secondary emission, as I said earlier, gas to particle conversion. So produced from SO2 or DMS. DMS is dimethyl sulfate, and this dimethyl sulfate is basically emitted to the atmosphere as a result of the grazing of phytoplankton by zooplankton. And then these gas in the atmosphere, it undergoes a chemical reaction and then it becomes a sulfate aerosol. So that is what the DMS, and mostly then from human fossil fuel combustion, that is SO2. And albedo is 0.99, that means it's good because only 10% or not, yeah, it's basically the 99% is going back, only 1%, not 10%, only 1% is being retained in the atmosphere. Does this cause warming or cooling? Definitely cooling, because 99 is going back. Then the black carbon. So mostly from biomass burning and fossil fuel combustion, and appears black to the naked eye. What would be its albedo be? It is 0. So this is the most dangerous species as far as the aerosols are concerned, black carbon aerosol. And these are emitted to the atmosphere by human activity, like biomass burning, fossil fuel, all that adds to this. You can see that albedo is 0 means 100% of energy is absorbed. And if this BC, if it settles in ice, let's say in Arctic, Antarctic, and of course in Himalayan region, you can just imagine that what would be the condition. That's the reason why now the government of India has come out with the Bharat 6. Earlier it was Euro 4, Euro 3 likewise. Now it is Bharat 6. Does this cause warming or cooling? Definitely warming, especially snow and ice. Yes. Then this is this is a publication by one of the Singapore scientists working in Singapore, and he has clearly shown that you can see here you have high the BC emission from this region. Here our northeastern part of India, and then this is the Indo-Gangetic plain, and then it all comes towards the Bay of Bengal, and of course China. So this is domestic coal burning, and this is due to diesel, and this is again Africa, again due to biomass burning. Now, organic matter, variety of compounds, natural or from humans. You have terpenes from trees, vegetation, and fossil fuel and biomass burning. Can be primary or secondary emission. Now, I have already explained that where does it come from, but then let me compartmentalize and explain this. For example, in South America, July, September, high concentration due to land clearing and agriculture fires. At this juncture, let me also bring your kind attention to what happens in Delhi during winter. Now, after harvesting, the residue of crop has been burnt by farmers, and then this adds a lot of BC to the atmosphere. Now, look at this. During November, December, Jan, you have the winter. So during winter, atmosphere is stable. So all that particles which are being emitted to the atmosphere, and again, let me also add another important thing. BC is fine mode particle, very small, very fine mode particle. I'll explain you what is the size wise, how much micrometer, etc. So it's a fine mode particle. So this is settling inside because atmosphere is very stable. And when you travel through that, let's say you are going for a morning walk, or you are going for any exercise activity during this time, you would finally land in a hospital. So that's the reason why during winter time, you can see that Delhi, the air quality has been worse, and all those kind of a report comes. And the recent study by IIT Madras shows that there are a lot of plastic burning in Delhi, and especially they have done some chemical analysis, and then the results have come out. So these are the kind of things going on, and therefore it's basically our own activity, and that creates a problem for us. Now, South America between July to September, and Central America March to May, Central and South Africa June to September, Southeast Asia January to April. Now, high concentration due to storm in Arabian Peninsula May to August. I would also show you one video now that where does the dust to Goa come from? I'll show you that. So high concentration due to human produced air pollution, northern India and Himalaya region. Because this is what I said earlier, that due to biomass burning, especially for cooking, etc., the wood is being used, and that adds a lot of BC, and that was the reason why the government has taken an initiative to request all of us to surrender one of the cylinders, so that this can at least partly can be resolved. Then Eastern China most of the year. Now this is something very important. In fact, it's a very explosive result, I would say, that in the year 2019, on 2nd April, there was a fire event at Talgava Plateau. that is the waste dumping yard and the soot emission. Okay, and it actually it prolonged for a period of around I think, if I'm correct, 4 to 5 hours. And next day when I went to different flats, I just had a the look at the different flats. All were of black in color. Let me tell you, this is the full day. So we have an instrument here in School of Earth Ocean Atmospheric Science, and we have tracked that. You see here around 1630, that means around 4:30, you have BC around 5,000 nanograms per meter cube. 5,000 nanograms per meter cube. Different color shows different days. Okay, so 2nd April you have 5,000 nanograms around 1630, that is 4:30, and then it goes down. Why it goes down, I will explain you later. But then the most important thing is that on 3rd, if you see, 3rd morning around 6:25, around 4,300. So just imagine that if someone goes for a morning walk on 3rd April, and then what he breathes is going to be this. This fine mode particle will be completely inhaled. And why it is so? This is basically due to the day and night time thermal convection. That means during the daytime, you have Goa University campus being in the coastal region, you have the land and sea breeze. Land breeze is during the night time and sea breeze during the daytime. But this was around 4:30. Now let me tell you, we also try to understand where this has gone, because after this the concentration has come down. It has gone due to this, because we try to analyze using a model that is a NOVA high split model, which clearly shows that this fire, the particles which are emitted, has been lifted up. And then you see here, this is on 3444. So from here it has been lifted and it went up to 3,500 meters, and then it went to the coastal waters. But imagine that if such events frequently occur, what would be the condition? What would happen to the ecosystem of the coastal waters? This is another important question to be asked. And here, and here you find that the concentration has been decreased. Actually, it is nanograms per meter cube. So late in the evening and the night time, what happened is that it is per meter cube, 1 meter into 1 meter into 1 meter. That means it's the volume of the air. So volume of the air reduces as a result of cooling during the night time and early in the morning. That's why early in the morning, the PBL also is coming down. Planetary boundary layer is also coming down. Therefore, that traps everything within that PBL. And then we are walking through that, because PBL is around 1 to 1.2 kilometers. So we are walking through that and everything will be inhaled. So this is what happened. And then during the 11:50 or 12 o'clock, let's say during the noon time, the temperature is peaked. So atmosphere expanded. That means volume, the mass per unit volume. So volume is increased. So denominator is increased. That is the reason why you find that the mass is reduced. Actually, mass is not reduced. Mass is the same. Unless and until it is taken away by wind or the atmospheric dynamics, it would be there. And now I would show you, this is 20 years of, the aerosol, and then how this, with monthly or seasonally, how it varies. I'll show you this. This is a very interesting thing. And then you can see that where does the dust come from to Goa. Oh, 1 minute. You can see this. You see this. These are the months 2001 to 2020. So just see. I will stop somewhere. Yes, April. Just see this. This is July 2003. So where is the aerosol coming to this western coast? It's all coming from the Middle East, and yeah. Yeah, see this. This in May, in the month of May, from Sahara, aerosols are going towards the dust particles are going towards the Florida coast, and from here it's all coming towards the west coast of India. So then, if you see, okay, August, September, yeah. September, if you see, September, November, if you see, the land is clean because of monsoon. So June to September, you have the rain. That rain washes away, but then these are the dust particles. Dust particles, as I said, I said that the albedo of the dust particle 0.55. That means 0.5. That means 50% is absorbed and 50% is going back. And this will certainly will have BC also, black carbon also, because it's coming from the land. So just imagine that what would be the condition, and that how does that affect the weather and the climate as far as the small state, tiny state like Goa is concerned. Okay. Now, so after looking at that, we have done some experiment in the university, wherein what we did is that we have aerosol optical depth. Aerosol optical depth is nothing but the columnar aerosol. That means from the top of the atmosphere to the top of the building. Okay, all the column of the atmosphere, how much aerosol is there? In that, what are the other species? So we have increased BC. Sorry, we have increased BC, and then we find that when we increase the BC, the albedo. Where is the? You can see this curve. You can see the albedo has been reduced to 0.65. That means 35% of the incoming solar radiation have been absorbed by this. So this has been, of course, it's a derived data, plus we also have done a theoretical analysis for that. Therefore, what are the health effects of this? Health impacts are: fine aerosol particles are responsible for causing the greatest harm to human health. Inhaled deep into lungs, they can cause breathing and respiratory problems, irritation, inflammation, and of course cancer. And if you look at the agriculture impact, let's say you are adding more and more particles to the atmosphere. If you just recollect what has been explained in that the animation, where I said that if you have more scattering type of particles, then we'll have more albedo. If you have more albedo, what will happen to 0.4 to 0.7 micrometer? That's the visible part of electromagnetic spectrum, and the integral effect, integral energy is the one used for PAR, photosynthetically available radiation for plants, and then of course for phytoplankton. So it's completely reduced. That means it can lead to a large catastrophe. So deposition of particles on the two things are there. One is that the integral effect of that integral energy has been reduced between 400 to 700 nm, and also these particles are settled on the leaf and then shields the PAR radiation. So these are the two effects as far as the agriculture and then health impacts are concerned. So this is the naming convention, usually divided into three different groups, like Aitken nuclei, large nuclei, and giant nuclei. These are the diameter. And then you also have nucleation mode, accumulation mode, and then of course coarse mode. In fact, the maritime aerosol, that means aerosol which are produced from ocean, are generally termed as are generally coarse mode particle. And of course, when the particles, as I said earlier, like BC is there, let's say residence time of the BC in the atmosphere is for a long time, and if the humidity is increasing, what will happen is that it becomes accumulation mode. That means slowly, the outer surface gets humidified, and that attracts, that acts like a hygroscopic nuclei. It attracts the water vapor, and then it accumulates, and then it acts like a cloud condensation nuclei. Now another explosion, in fact I would say that another exploding result is that you see this is a boundary layer, planetary boundary layer. Okay, now this is our Earth surface. There are many activity going on here. This vertical profile of aerosol shows that there is a thick layer of aerosol above the free troposphere, above the planetary boundary layer. That means within the free troposphere, here you can see within the free troposphere you have a thick layer of aerosol. Assume that this happens over the Tibetan Plateau, because Tibetan Plateau is the one where you have the low pressure development for our monsoon. If this happens, then the incoming solar radiation that is supposed to come to Earth's surface and heat the surface and further develop the low pressure, that won't happen. So then it will be a catastrophe. It will completely affect our water cycle. So it decays. For example, see, it decays from boundary layer 3 to 4 kilometers, then follows the molecular. Now, what is shown here is that Indo-Asian haze, that is transported thousands of kilometers in the equatorial Indian Ocean. This is the one. And then you will have, see, depends on the kind of the particle prevailing there as a cloud condensation nuclei, you can even expect acid rain. That's also there. Okay. Right. And then this is a result from equatorial Indian Ocean, where you can see that there is a thick layer of aerosol around 1.6 kilometers above the, the 1.6 kilometer means just above the planetary boundary layer within the free troposphere. So these things would certainly hamper the water cycle. I'm going to explain that. Now let us come to monsoon. As you all know that, you know what is monsoon. Monsoon is basically, it's a spatial heterogeneity in the pressure distribution. That means during summer, the land gets heated faster, and here it's cooling, and then you have a high pressure, and zeroth law of thermodynamics says that every system wants to be in an equilibrium, thermodynamic equilibrium. Therefore, the air goes from here and then rises, and this air, by virtue of the fact that this is going from the ocean, it is saturated with the water vapor, and that is being risen, and then the cloud formation. But imagine that you have a thick layer of aerosol here. So what will happen? This has to be, first and foremost, is that you have to have an intense low pressure here. Without this intense low pressure, this won't come. That is one. Second aspect is that, see, you are getting the southwest monsoon from the Arabian Sea. Recent study shows that Arabian Sea is warming up. So if Arabian Sea is warming up, what will happen to high pressure over there? You won't have any high pressure. Rather, there also is going to be low pressure. So where is the system then? So that is what, if you have a thick layer of the aerosol here, whether it is BC or scattering type of aerosol, that prevents the radiation from coming down, and thus it prevents the heating of the surface, land surface. So thus it will not create any low pressure. Unless and until you have a low pressure, you won't get the saturated the air mass from the ocean towards this. And the winter, you have weak solar radiation, and you have the high pressure over here and the low pressure over here. It has. So this is the the monsoon origin and water cycle, and the same thing has been explained again in a very simple fashion. Here, summer, you have the low here, lot of heating, and of course it happens in the Tibetan Plateau because that's the hot spot, and that is the eye of you can say that the monsoon trough, or meteorologists say. I think Dr. Ramesh Kumar will be able to appreciate that. And this is the getting heated and summertime. And then you have the air coming from here, and then of course it is lifted up, and then you have the cloud formation and then monsoon. So if you have, without any control, let's say there is a large emission of aerosol. Assume that you have the large emission of aerosol, and there is a thick aerosol between, let's say, Kashmir towards the tip of India. Just imagine what will happen to our water cycle. So this is something very, very important, and that's the reason why now Indian Space Research Organization has taken initiative, wherein, in fact, it is going on for the last 10 years under IGBP, ISRO Geosphere Biosphere Program, wherein number of institutions have been identified who are doing research in this field. In fact, we are also one among them. And then there is something called ARFI, aerosol radiative forcing over India. And under that project, we are generating data, and then we are estimating the radiative forcing, and then some kind of a control is coming, because this is going to the central government for the policy, document. And then I have discussed the, the emission, air pollution, atmospheric pollution, and its effect on the weather, of course, and the climate. Now, let me tell you that what we have done with respect to this, we had carried out many number of studies. Of course, in Goa, we have a station, we have an aerosol observatory created in School of Earth, Ocean, Atmospheric Science, and then the measurements are going on for a long time. Plus, we also take part in the, scientific cruises, and then take measurement, because we want to know that all that is happening over the land, whether that is going towards ocean, and then how that ecosystem is being affected. Because especially we were looking at Southern Ocean. Southern Ocean means south of 40 degrees south, where basically it's a pristine atmosphere. So where you get aerosol from phytoplankton, means natural, the naturally produced aerosol, whether that's being hindered as a result of the human action. So to understand that, we have been doing number of cruises. I'll show that result. And wherein, we have been generating data on in situ basis, that number of instruments we have got from different projects, and also satellite. Now, what is the advantage of satellite? Satellite is actually a bird's eye view. It gives a bird's eye view. It gives a synoptic coverage. That means it gives a large area of coverage at the same time. Let's say that if I want to analyze the monsoon and then its effect Of course, sea surface temperature is an important component as far as the monsoon is concerned. So if I want to have sea surface temperature over Arabian Sea, then what I should do is that I should depend on a satellite data. So satellite, we have the large area of coverage and we get the data. So we are using both in situ and satellite. And then area of study was coastal region and oceanic environment. And then these are the instruments we have, this is established already. This is a meteorological tower having number of sensors on that. And then these are the instruments. Now this is multi-wavelength radiometer, which is installed over the top of the building. And this is around 10 filters are there. That means starting from 320 nm to 1020 nm. And every day morning we go up and then we, adjust that towards the solar radiation. Wherever we get maximum intensity, to that we adjust, and it is connected to a logger down and it is automatically rotated. That means it's a sun synchronous radiometer. So if you go at 12 o'clock, you would see that this is looking at sun. At 3 you go, it is looking at the sun. That means by virtue of the intensity of the light, we would deduce the aerosol optical depth. That means we get the total optical depth. From there, we estimate the aerosol optical depth and then estimate, further analysis will be done. And this is a nephelometer. This is for to understand the scattering of scattering type of aerosol and also the albedo, because we want to know that how the albedo is varying. By now, you know that albedo is an index of absorption of the light. And then this is ethylometer. This is for measuring the BC black carbon aerosol. And this gives the size of the particle. In fact, it gives from 0.01 to 25 micrometers, coarse mode particle or fine mode particle. So we can understand that in which period we have fine mode particle, which period you have nucleation mode, etc.